Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about how to engage landowners in climate change topics. And we're going to focus particularly on understanding people's perspective and what motivates them to engage. So first, we have to understand as educators, how does climate change matter to people? Well, it matters in a lot of different ways. And you can see here there's several domains of what matters to people. There's the cultural domain, which seeks to ask the question, what is our moral imperative? What's our responsibility to each other and to ecosystems? There's also the legal domain, and here the question is, what's allowable? We have a system of laws in this country that can direct us towards a greater good. However, as academics or as educators, cultural and legal domains are outside our scope of work. Our role is to help people understand the issues and what options for action are possible. What we can talk about is what's being impacted and how could we manage it. But it's important to stay out of those legal and cultural domains. For example, we can talk about the laws that guide markets. However, we can't give legal advice or make policy. So, what do people want to hear from educators? I don't know if any of you are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but it's really helpful for understanding the order of priorities that people have. At the basic level, everyone needs to survive. They need food and water and shelter. And after their basic needs have been met, they need to know that they're going to be safe into the future. They also need family and love and those social interactions, those relationships, their community. All of this comes first. But then after this is the idea of being respected by others, of esteem, of being a unique individual, and reaching your own potential, which is this idea of self-actualization. That's on the very top. So when we think about how climate change is experienced and what people want to know, we can think about it in the context of this hierarchy. First of all, people are going to be paying attention to their immediate concerns. So extreme temperatures, wildfire, flooding, droughts, all these things impact people's basic needs. And this is where most people will be listening. There are other aspects of climate change that can impact things like species distribution, plant physiology, biodiversity. All of that's a little bit more abstract. It's harder to see. So when we want to communicate those ideas, what we're really doing is we're helping them engage in the idea of being a good land steward, of doing right by the land. And most people are able to engage after they know their basic needs are met. So that's how we can help them understand what to pay attention to when it comes to their forest. Here I'm presenting a conceptual model that I created using a qualitative study. Basically, I did interviews with landowners throughout the southeastern US, but I think what I found applies to most landowners. In this model, I show how economic choices, basically how much a landowner is willing to pay or how much they're willing to accept as payment, are related to the actions they're willing to take in providing different kinds of resources. In this case, I looked at timber, wildlife, and water protection services and climate change mitigation. This is built on the idea that landowners have different ways of looking at their forest. Someone with the producer perspective focuses on creating goods for society, growing timber, growing biomass, storing carbon. They're being provided a good that they should get paid for. The stewardship perspective is focused on what is the idea of a personal responsibility, either to people or ecosystems or to nature. Similarly, the citizen perspective is a question of what's my responsibility to my community. Paying attention to all these different perspectives requires kind of a balancing act when making forest management decisions. And what folks are trying to do is ultimately achieve that goal of self-actualization or reaching their potential, like we discussed earlier. Strategies a lot of landowners use are ideas such as having skin in the game, that they should be willing to sacrifice something to show they're doing it for the right reasons. But their management decisions also have to be financially feasible. So at the end of the day, they still have to meet their basic needs. As educators, we can bring the information needed to help them decide what it is they can and can't do with the resources they have available. Needs-based decision-making is another strategy used by landowners. Well, they'll work on the problem that's in front of them, and then they'll just go with the best decision at the time. Sometimes the problem or the issue has to do with the health of their forest or how they want to make it more productive. Or sometimes their focus is something else in their life. It could be their health, or it could be focusing on retirement. In many cases, landowners are interested in stacking their income streams as a way of diversifying their portfolio of revenue options so that there's flexibility. All in all, it's a balancing act for a lot of folks. They're having to consider the needs of the forest as well as their personal needs. So it's helpful for educators to recognize and understand the multiple perspectives and objectives that landowners have for what they want to achieve on their land. I hope that what you take away from this is that climate change related conversations can be positive, and it doesn't have to be a conversation killer if you keep conversations focused on what you can see and what you can do for people and their forests. And when you enter in these conversations, assume your clients are motivated to do the right thing for themselves and for other people and ecosystems too. So here's some reflection questions for you to consider. What are the economic and social impacts of climate change on forests and communities? What basic needs will need to be met in the future, and how will forests be part of that? And how do your clients' stewardship values perhaps overlap with climate stewardship practices? What areas of management do we already agree on or take action on when it comes to forest management and carbon and climate change mitigation? I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. If you're watching this video on YouTube, we encourage you to check out our free online educator course. If you're already taking this course, feel free to put questions in the Q&A form on the classroom page. Remember to fill out the surveys if you want credits and to complete the comprehension check. See you in the next video.